My great-grandfather, James Brown, had a car dealership in San Francisco, and after the earthquake of 1906, the business pretty much failed for him, and so he was looking for something else to do. He had purchased a piece of property in Capitola sometime prior and moved to Capitola. Noticed that a lot of neighbors were doing some farming, and he started experimenting with a few flower bulbs. He noticed some of the other growers in the area were growing and was quite successful with a few varieties. Particularly begonias did quite well, and he ended up going to Europe and picked up multiple types of seed and bulbs and experimented with those as well, and callas were another crop that he started to grow as well. James died at the age of 49. Both his sons, Alan and Worth Brown, then took over the business. Worth was doing most of the sales, and Alan was doing most of the horticultural end of it. Bulb business increased in production. They bought more land in the Marina area for the increased begonia and eventually the callas.
I got a degree in horticulture from Cal Poly, and after that I did an internship in a bulb company in South Africa, Hadeco Bulb, and worked there for 6 months in 1984, and did some traveling after that, and came back and went to work, and been here ever since. Growing up in the business, a lot of times you're doing jobs that aren't the most interesting or the most fun, and a lot of times you're not that interested. And I wasn't that interested till I went to college and got into the horticulture program, and I found other students that were either going to family businesses or some that weren't, and they thought it was it was great that we actually had a family business, and so. I think at that time I got more encouragement to do it. When I got into the business, my cousins were just getting into it too, and it was pretty much we were a begonia bulb growing company, and they grew. They farmed on about 75 acres in Marina, California, and I think they did about $1 million in sales, is what I recall. There was also a wholesale business at that time. I think the wholesale business had just been discontinued in the early 80s, and so we just had the production business. But it was much smaller. It was focused on begonias, and it's changed a lot in the last 30 years. Begonia business was very flat, and there wasn't much growth in that, and actually the business shrank, and we needed to develop other crops. So the main crop we developed was a calla lily crop. Got a breeding program put together, took the original genetic material they had and developed new varieties, and brought them on the market, and the market was interested in calla lilies at that time in the 80s and 90s. And we grew pretty rapidly, adding acreage and production and sales every year till we were, by 2005, we were farming over 1,000 acres and producing 25 million bulbs and over $25 million in business. So it changed a lot from a smaller begonia-focused business to a larger business, a lot of international sales as well. It changed quite a bit in scope and size and just what type of crops we were focusing on.
I was hired as a calla breeder, even though we were selling more or less begonias. But the calla program developed as a plant breeder and as a plant pathologist with this particularly sensitive crop. We were able to create all these new varieties that you see out here and be quite successful in developing this crop to the world. It was always known as the big white funeral flower or the winter calla, but now the colored calla, the miniature calla, has become a staple in many people's lives and certainly a staple for this company. This particular crop, the way we have developed this crop is to grow from true seed or have lines come true. And this takes many generations of developing inbreds, as many as 10 to 15 years to develop a line which is stable enough to protect and patent and move out to the field. The old funeral flower has now developed into one of the most precious and beautiful and outstanding horticultural crops, both in a pot and as a cut flower.
Internationally, we sell to all of the major markets in the world, the primary business being in Europe, and of course they're leaders in bulb production over there. So the fact that we're selling a product into the Netherlands by the ton on a weekly basis is always quite surprising, especially to the Dutch. But that tells you how good the quality of our product is that we sell. So yeah, Europe being number one, and then the other markets, of course, would be Canada and Japan, China, recently Australia, and a few other miscellaneous countries. More now into South America. Some large cut flower operations in South America are buying our product now than they did before. But our main market is here in the U.S.
We'd bring in about 10 or 12 loads of bulbs a day in our peak season, in a busy season, and we'd fill up this warehouse here completely full, and then we'd fill up another warehouse. We were at several different warehouses all over Watsonville, and all the bulbs wouldn't fit here, so we'd have to rent an off-site warehouse, and then we'd fill that up also. And so there was a lot of trucking of the bulbs back and forth from those other warehouses.
I started in a different position. I've been a tractor driver for a few years, supervisor almost 9 years, and keep learning from my other supervisors and managers. I learned from Justin, and eventually I get opportunity. One of my farm managers decide to leave. They give me the opportunity to be in the farm manager, and I accept it. And I basically go from there and try to do it the best every day. And now I complete almost about 8 years. We have all the time multiple locations, up to 18, 20 different ranches. Santa Cruz County, Monterey County, and different locations like San Juan Bautista, Gonzales, Soledad, Marina, and even we grow a crop on Santa Maria, California.
The Cala crop is a 2-year crop to produce from seed. It's direct seeded in the field. It actually takes 2.5 years because you have to collect the seed the year prior in parent stock ranches, separate ranches where we just produce seed. You sow the seed directly in the field. Fields are fumigated prior to it. They're a very slow germinating crop. It takes a couple months just to raise the seedlings, and then at the end of the first year you have small seedling plants in the field, and they go into dormancy, and then you have the second year they grow to a flowering stage, flower in the months of May and June. And then the tubers start to size up as you approach September, and the harvest starts early, mid-September, and goes through first part of December. And the bulbs are brought in, processed at the facility, sorted and graded and inventoried, and then start shipping out by mid-October. Full 2-year process from collecting seed to getting the product out the door, and begonias are only a 1-year process, and they're a much simpler crop, although they have to be started in a greenhouse and they have to be transplanted, so they're a bit different.
potting up begonias to collect seed, which is the mother block, and also with the Cala mother block, we produce seed and we sow the seed, and this is part of the product from the seed that we harvest. We have Cala Ethiopica, we have Amaryllis, Belladonna, we have Eucomas, and all those, that's part of my job. Control the greenhouses, all environment, watering, feeding, drenching, and take care of all the plants. Begonias, that's one of the most interesting plants because they produce a lot of flowers for 5 months at least. Beautiful, they're all different sizes of begonias. We have uprights, hanging basket, Centum begonias, and we start, with the mother block. We pot them up and we grow them in the greenhouses, and we make the process to collect seed, and that is to produce this baby begonias. We send it to the field. They grow for 6-7 months in the field, and then we harvest the bulbs in the field and bring it back to Hilltop, and then we grade the bulbs by varieties, and then from there they pack them and send to their customers.
last 30 years, we've had significant earthquakes in '89, which fortunately did not cause too much damage. It did cause inconvenience with roads being closed and fuel shortages and things.
Fortunately, when the earthquake hit, none of the pallets came down. They all stayed stacked up. The lights were swinging. It looked like a haunted house, and there was nobody around. I was the only one here, so it was kind of scary. And then I started to drive home, and the bridge that goes over the Watsonville Slough had broke completely, was down, so the highway was closed, and had to go back and get off the freeway and take another route to get home. But yeah, that was a scary deal there.
In '90-91, that winter, we had one of the worst freezes we've had around here, worst in my lifetime. But it was 2 successive cold fronts came down in a row. So it lasted 13 days, and the temperatures got down around 17, 18 degrees at night, and we basically froze out 75-80% of the begonia crop. So that was pretty bad. We were around the clock running the sprinklers out in the field. There's 3 of us. There'd be the farm manager, John Hutchins, myself, and the assistant farm manager, Dave Lansford, and we just rotate. I had the evening to midnight shift, and just watch the sprinklers, make sure everything was running fine, the pump was running okay, and build yourself a fire and try not to freeze. So that was pretty bad. And then we had the '95 flood, so-called March Miracle, where both the Pajaro River and the Salinas Rivers flooded. And we had a farm, one of our farms was on the Pajaro River, and it flooded pretty bad, had the water in there for a day and a half, probably closer to 2 days, and then and we were trying to sandbag the levee, and all the water seeping through the gopher holes, and it was a losing battle. Eventually the levee breached further up and yeah, flooded. But funny enough, the bulbs came out okay out of that field for some, they didn't, it wasn't underwater long enough to hurt them, so that worked out. Certainly we've had blights due to bacterial diseases. The Erwinia is a terrible disease. We've had a number of years where we've lost good portions of the crop to that, and then we've had diseases with viral diseases, had bad tomato spotted wilt outbreaks that infested the crop that cost us a lot of money. So a lot of interesting challenges, and even in Mexico and at Baja just 3 years ago, we had a Category 3 hurricane hit us head on, and fortunately we only had one or 2 plantings in the ground, and but it just tore up all the steel buildings. It tore up the whole town. It was a mess. So yeah, we've faced some interesting challenges when it comes to that sort of thing. After 2008, things were a little bumpy, both from crop production issues and economic issues at that time. We started to lose money more frequently. We started to get more competition. All our competition basically is offshore foreign competition out of the Netherlands primarily, but a fair amount out of South America and Central America, certainly with the flowers. And they were being very competitive, and our costs were rising rapidly. And our breeding program was introducing new varieties, but probably not as many high quality varieties as we needed to keep up with the competition. Basically nailing our coffin after losing money successive years was the regulations and the increased cost of labor in the state of California. Basically minimum wage going up to $15 an hour, a lot of regulatory costs being kicked in. So on top of the fact that we already were struggling to get competitive again with the competition, get more efficient, get better varieties in the market, do a better job selling and marketing, now we're faced with rapidly rising costs, which we were not going to be able to pass those costs along. So that kind of sealed the decision, and we decided at that point that we better close the business on our terms before we were forced to do it.
A lot of flower companies is closing down, again through other circumstances also. Yeah, it's difficult to stay in the market in an economic situation like this. People rather grow vegetables or lettuce, food.
The workers really have been the ones that kind of have motivated me over the years and inspired me, because I see, you know, how hard they'll work to do a job right. And I always think, you know, if they're willing to do that, you know, that inspires me to get up, you know, early in the morning and do my job.
The main thing, you know, I live here. The company gave me a home to live here. And my kids, they grow up here in the ranch. And we're gonna have to go and live now in the city, which is gonna be totally different. And all my workers, you know, they're really good workers. So I'm probably gonna miss everything. So in a way, I'm not really sure where I'm gonna go. I hardly know how to do other things than this, because I've been working here for almost 26 years. So sure, I'm gonna miss this.
A lot of the people working in here, tractor drivers, sprayers, supervisors, has been working for the company many years, some up to 40 years, 30 years. It's really like a family.
There's a part of me that obviously is going to miss the business and the people that I worked with for you know, like 30 years. But you know, we were in business for over 100 years. It's something we can be proud of. All of the crops that we developed ourselves. Very little outside help. Those crops are now being sold to other companies as breeding lines, and they'll continue on. You know, who knows for how long. So it's all something we can be really proud of, and you know, it's a new chapter in many of our lives.
I've spent my last 30 some odd years working at this, and then something that I'd hoped to be able to pass on to the next generation like previous generations had. So yeah, it was not easy, but rapid closure would have been very inconvenient for everybody. So yeah, it was tough. It was a tough decision. No, it's been inspirational and a good life experience to be in this type of work, and I've enjoyed it.
It's been an honor to be a part of this family and a part of this business. We were growing something that really put smiles on people's faces. That was really what this business, and a lot of what this business was about, was beautifying the world and putting smiles on people's faces.